But hello, everybody. Welcome back. Today is March 10th. This is TMR Master Advisor episode number 48. We're going to be talking about firing your client today, which I know is an interesting topic and one that I'm really excited to jump into. But I want to run us just through a couple of announcements first. As always, especially for the new viewers, please switch into speaker view. That's going to be the best way to watch today's session. Also, the chat on your bottom right is going to be open as we go along. And again, as always, don't be shy. Drop your comments, your questions in there, and I'll do my best to grab them as we go along today. I also want to thank everyone who attended our session a couple of weeks ago on luxury travel. We really tackled a whole lot in that video. So if you haven't watched it yet and you want to, it's hosted on our YouTube channel. So you can head there and you can watch all of our audio and our video content on demand for free. We're going to drop a link in the chat. But if you do head there, please subscribe, like the videos. I say it every week, but it helps us keep growing this community of travel advisors and keeps helping us bring this kind of content to you. I also want to announce that we have a lot of exciting content coming up over the next month or so. We'll be back here in 2 weeks to talk about scaling your business. And we have a really great guest, a travel advisor who came from the startup world, who's only been in business for a few years, but she's managed to double her business over the pandemic, and she's recently won Virtuoso's Most Innovative Travel Advisor Award. So I'm really excited about that one. Again, we're going to drop the link in the chat if you want to register for that one in advance, but that'll be going out over the next couple of weeks. So please keep an eye out for that. Also, any travel advisors who are in the New York area next week, the TMR team will be at the Javits Center on Friday, March 18th for the New York Travel and Adventure Show. It's a really exciting day. It's the first time we've done this. We're hosting the trade day on the Friday. So please, if you're in the area and you want to drop by, we do have some free tickets available. We're going to drop the link in the chat for anyone who wants to register for that. I know there's a lot of links going in the chat right now, but if you're interested, it's a free ticket. You can come out. We have a lot of great content planned. We have panels on cruise, on domestic travel, international travel, on retail. Yeah, so if you're in the area, we'd love to see you. We'd love to meet you and have some face-to-face time, especially after the last couple of years. All right, so now that that's all out of the way, I want to get to the topic of today. So today I'm very, very happy to welcome Stacey Acree, the president of Brentwood Travel, to Master Advisor to talk about firing your client, and probably more positive spin is just managing your agency's clients. Stacey's been with Brentwood Travel for her whole career. She's a third generation travel expert and the granddaughter of Brentwood's founders. She took over as president last year. Stacey, I want to welcome you to Master Advisor and say thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here. And this is definitely a hot topic and one we are all always, we always have those clients that challenge us. So I am happy to be here and talk about this topic.
Yeah, so I know we have a ton to talk about. I know people are going to have questions as we go along today. And again, the chat's open. But first, I just want to give you sort of the opportunity to tell us a little bit about your agency and how you got into selling travel. I know I mentioned it a couple of minutes ago, but I just wanted to give you some time.
Right. Well, thanks for mentioning I am a third generation. We've been in business 65 years. And I think I've heard a lot over the years. My grandparents did start the company in 1957. So we're a 65-year-old company. I've grown up in the travel world. So they worked to bring the travel experience to St. Louis, my grandparents, and they took clients abroad and did groups all over the world. My mom, Stephanie Turner, she's here with me today, and she got into the business during a TWA strike. Oh, wow. And never left. So she's also very, very involved in the industry and on many boards, very well known in the industry. And I've learned a lot from her as well. And then I got into it literally from when I was a child, and I did every job imaginable, and started after college really getting into it through marketing, and then realized I had a bunch of clients. I did everyone's honeymoons. So I slowly got into it and realized I love the sales part of it. And I've been in it for over 30 years, and it's just something that is truly in my blood, and I love traveling. So
yeah, we hear that a lot. We hear a lot about second generation, third generation travel advisors. So it's such a pleasure to have another one on the call with us today. I do want to get to the topic of the day, but I do want to ask you about something that's sort of impacting the industry a little bit now, and something you spoke with some consumer media about last night. I just want to ask, all these headlines about oil prices, which everyone who drives a car realizes how high they're getting right now. What's the impact those oil prices are having on flight prices in your experience? I know it's difficult to forecast anything, but what are you seeing right now? What are you hearing right now? What are your clients and your supplier partners saying?
Right. So, I mean, I read a lot like everyone else, but I think besides the oil topic, our business has suffered for 2 years. So the demand, the supply, the oil, a combination of many things. I have was going to go to Europe actually in June, and I realized the ticket prices are really going up. And when you're quoting tickets, they are live prices. So even if you can hold them, you really need to convince your clients that the rates are going up. I see it over and over again where you don't hold something and you go back to quote it and it's a lot higher. So be very careful when you are working in the air part of it, that you tell your clients this is the amount today and that the rates can go up. And I do think the trend is they're going to go up because the amount of airline tickets going to certain places, there's not as many flights. So it's very limited, and the rates, I'm sure, with what's going on today is going to affect and drive up prices.
Yeah, we were speaking a little bit about before the call, and you mentioned it just seems like a perfect storm of oil prices, travel demand, protocols being relaxed everywhere. People want to travel. People have extra money. Like it just seems like if you're talking to a client, just make them aware that we should book. If we want to lock in this price now, it's probably better to book now than later.
Right. I just noticed on the news last night, spring break, and I guess it was in Florida, but I couldn't get over the crowd. So
Yeah.
I think it's a lot to do with demand and of course the prices. People are paying, they're paying it, even if it's triple what it was last year. People are ready to go. And so book early is my best advice on that one.
Yeah. All right. So
All right.
let's jump into the topic, which I know is why everyone's here. The topic of today is how to fire a client, and I know we're going to try to get a little more positive on that as we go along today. But I just want to ask you a general question to start out with, because I remember the beginning of the pandemic, a lot of travel advisors were trying their best to hold on to whatever business they could hold on to. So this might seem foreign to so many, especially people who maybe started only a little before the pandemic. But why would you, as a travel advisor, ever want to fire a client?
Right? Well, you don't ever want to fire a client, but it's an important topic because we need to distinguish between a challenging client versus a time wasting client and someone who does not value your time or advice. So I think you get those red flags, and some people just don't understand how you work. So a lot of it comes down to communication. But there are clients that they want all your advice and they keep asking you questions and they don't give you anything about what they really want. They tell you they want to go on a vacation. They tell you maybe where they want to go, but they're not even sure. And then they keep asking for more. And you need to cut the cord at some point. So I think the clients respect you more when you say, you know what, this isn't working. They almost want to work with you more. So you need to be the professional and you need to know when to say enough is enough.
Yeah, so I want to talk about those red flags. I know there's so many advisors out there who've had clients for a long, long time, and I know there's also a flood of clients coming in now to this segment looking for advisors who maybe haven't before. Um, I'm curious. I mean, what kind of red flags would people present to you to make you start thinking about having this conversation, or make you maybe start thinking about maybe this isn't the right fit for me or you?
Right. So the client who is not a right fit basically tells you up front they can find it cheaper before you've even started. They looked online. Sometimes it's a value when they do the research because then you kind of know what their expectations are and what they're looking for. But the client who is the dreamer, and we all have those, oh, my neighbor just got back from a trip and I want the cheapest, when they start off saying that those keywords and they have no idea where or what the date is. It's like they want you to pick something out of the blue. You don't even know them. So you can't just pick their dream vacation out of the blue. They don't have dates, they don't have a budget, they don't even know who's going on the trip. So you need to really make sure you ask those questions so you qualify them up front. And if you really have that red flag, you need to maybe, if they're all over the place, they have 10 different destinations, start in right away with fees and a contract.
Okay. Yeah, because that seems like that's starting right away off. Having a responsibility to narrow down the destinations for a client seems like too big of a deal already starting out. I mean, I understand people are shopping for value a lot of the times, and maybe that presents a red flag, but not having a destination seems like a big red flag.
Right. So, obviously some people, they just don't know and they need you to ask questions, and that's fine. Those clients, they just don't know, and they don't know what you really do. I have people ask me all the time, like, what is a travel agent and how do you make your money? It's okay to explain that. But I think, again, we all know those red flags as far as they they have question after question, but they won't give you they won't even tell you their name, their full names. They won't give you their birth dates. They won't give you the information back. The person who really wants to go, they're willing to give you it right away. They
Okay.
cannot wait for you to plan their vacation. So you need to have that's where you become the expert. You need to know when the client's willing to give you as much as you're giving them.
Yeah. So our last episode, we had two different travel advisors, and something they shared with us was that talking about that qualifying process and those initial questions, and they shared their best initial question with us. And just going off this conversation me and you were having, Stacey, I'm wondering, I mean, what are good questions to have in that initial call that'll maybe help identify those red flags or even help you place them in the right vacation should they actually work out to be your client?
Right. I think that's a great question. So number one, and we never ask this question, I'm not sure why, but who is the decision maker? So you have the grandparents who want to take their whole family on a vacation, but really the grandkids are the decision makers sometimes, even though the grandparents are paying for it, or the kids are the decision makers. So you need to ask that, because if you think the grandparents are the decision makers, but really the kids are telling them what their expectations, and they don't like, you're dealing with the grandparents and they're paying for it, but they are only listening to really what they want to make their kids happy.
Yeah.
So I think too, the questions of who, what, when, where, and why, and who is going on the vacation, what is the destination, where do you want to go, what are your dates, and why are you going? Are you celebrating a big experience? Is it your kids have a break during that time? So it's just, again, asking the right questions. And again, the feedback is going to be very telling.
Okay. And I'm curious, I mean, in this situation, when you realize the grandkids are the decision makers, how do you proceed from there? I mean, do you have conversations with them as a big family, or is it sort of passing information from the grandchildren to the grandparents to you?
So it does make a difference. Either you want to set up a call with everybody so they know that they want to be involved in the process. That's very helpful.
Okay.
And the other thing is, if they already have in their head that they want a type of vacation you don't sell, like vacation rentals by owners or non-refundable, highly non-refundable hotel trips. You don't really want to be a part of something that you are not an expert in, and you need to know when to let it go. If you are working with a vetted company like a Villas by Distinction or some type of rental company that will pay you for your time and services, and not just a fee, but a company that works with travel agencies or consortiums that give you those companies that you trust. That's huge today, because we all know with the pandemic, with canceling and not being able to get clients' money back was a real problem. So if you are trapped where the families only want to deal online, they don't even know what they're really purchasing, sometimes you might have to walk away and say, that's just not our expertise.
Yeah. So I see some questions coming in. I'm going to grab a couple here. Lena just wants to know about who you represent, Stacey, and it's Brentwood Travel.
We're
And then
Brentwood Travel in St. Louis, Missouri, and we've been,
Missouri.
again, a business for 65 years, third generation. Thank you.
And then we have another one about about having this sort of goes over the question I wanted to ask, which is just dealing with internally with losing a client or having to lose a client and telling yourself. Amory asks, does profitability matters with clients? In other words, are clients you fire the ones you make the least amount of money with, or do you calculate return on investment with each client? Is that sort of how you go through this thought process?
Oh gosh, when you have to come to that point of firing a client, it's sometimes really it's can be the most painful because there's no price. It's not about price point. It's just sometimes they want to go direct and they tell you that. You know, there are certain even river cruise companies that the clients will call direct because they want to ask a bazillion questions and you lose that sale. I mean, we've had it up against not just the cheap companies, but companies we can make a lot of money on. And in the end, if the client wants to go with a direct company, it's very painful because of course we all want everyone's business, but sometimes it's okay to let it go if the client in the end does not want to work with you and you're not obviously providing what they feel is a really good value, even though they probably just asked you for all your time and you spent so many hours giving them everything you got in your pocket as far as your knowledge and what you directed them to that itinerary and stuff, and then they want to book direct. It's very painful. We've all been there. It really has nothing to do with the money. It sometimes just has to do with a client not really maybe still being educated enough to know that your value is your contacts.
Yeah, and we've had this conversation because we've done a number of these sessions on service fees, and a lot of agents started adopting service fees over the last 3 years. Um, but and a lot of the initial worry was, hey, if I present this service fee, they might not want to work with me. But it seems like you just have to get to a place where you're comfortable losing clients, whether it's because they don't want to pay your service fee or because they're taking up too much of your time or because they're just too difficult to deal with. And is that something that's like, is that a difficult thing for you to realize as an agent?
It is because we're so used to giving away our knowledge for free and we put no value on our time, and we are trained experts that at least most of us who really care. And so I have no problem. You do need to watch your fee if you're not really knowledgeable about product and you're just putting in a fee to put a fee in. If you're good about a certain destination or about a company, and you know up front that it's going to be a wedding group, it's going to be something that they require a lot of your time and knowledge. The people who charge the fees are the ones that get better respect. The clients value their opinions. You should not be afraid to charge a fee. And it depends again on what the situation is. You have to determine, is this something I need, a regular client you've been dealing with for years? I mean, you may not want to do that. But a new client who they're taking your time, they're asking your questions. You need to at some point tell them and explain about your fees and not be afraid to lose the client.
Yeah. So the next question I want to ask is about sort of just having that conversation about maybe we should go our separate ways as client and advisor. But I see a lot of comments and questions coming in the chat. We have about 200 advisors in here with us. I want to grab a couple before we go along today. There's a good comment from Charisse who just sort of echoes what you said, Stacey. She says she's definitely earned more high value clients now that she charges a fee, and it does really help avoid the tire kickers. Um,
Yes, that is good.
and we have one from Elena who has a situation you might be able to help her with. I'm going to ask that one as well, but I just want to ask first about having that conversation because there was another question earlier about verbiage. So when you realize maybe it's time to part ways, do you have any advice or guidance about how do you approach your client with that information or with that decision that you made? And if there's any real world examples you can give us, Stacey, that would be great too.
Right. Well, in the end, all we have is our communication. So I think sometimes we are not clear and our clients don't understand our value. So you have to just tell them what your value is. Your value is the knowledge of the product, your resources, your industry experience, your confidence. And people like to buy from people they like. People like to buy from people who are competent. And if you're, and you need to you can't just send a quote and not call a client. People like to be called and talked to, and people want to know that they're valuable too. So the client wants to hear from you. They don't want just an email. You have to go a little above and beyond. If you're going to charge the fee, what makes you any better than going online? So the clients that we have, we do make sure that we are there for them and that we are explaining the itineraries. I can't stand when people send out they're about to go on a trip. They just spent a lot of money with you and they either never hear from you again because you haven't written the thank you note or followed up, or you haven't gone over their documents. Oh, well, I sent an email. That drives me crazy. I think clients don't read. So then you don't understand why they didn't understand what you just, you went over 8 months ago. You need to really be a value, and the clients do get that. If you charge it, then you really need to provide the value.
Yeah. So what about letting a client go? I mean, what about those conversations? I mean, is there any just tips? Because I know these might be awkward conversations, especially for advisors who maybe aren't as seasoned as you are. Any guidance on that, on having the conversation about we're not a great fit? Is it just one of those things it's just sort of like going to the dentist and you have to do it?
Right. So it just happened to us. We had an agent. We were preferred. We gave them quotes on this beach vacation, and then the obstacles started coming in. Oh, there's so much seaweed in Cancun. Oh, this other resort you picked isn't truly beachfront, or the beachfront rooms were the 4-bedroom suites that they didn't want. Okay. So they said, well, maybe we'll look at Expedia or Costco. Well, right there, we're not even anywhere in the same league. And we just had to explain, you know what, maybe we are not the right fit. It is such a hard conversation. No one wants to have that conversation. But as soon as I called the client and I said, listen, after the agent was having some bad experience, he right away was apologizing. Before I said any words, I just called and said, hi, it's Stacey. I just wanted to follow up. He was apologizing. He was saying, oh, we just can't decide as a family. He was giving me his objections that he wasn't giving that agent. So sometimes it helps to have somebody else in your office, maybe follow up with the client and just say, we tried our best to provide that service, but obviously we were not the best fit. And you'll find that most of the time they're apologizing to you before you're even getting to those words of you're fired or we're not the best fit, whatever the words are. But it is okay to ask somebody else for help when you are struggling with a certain client, because we don't all work the same with every single person. Some people are better fit, whether they're younger, older, the different experiences.
Yeah. Yeah, we have one comment in the chat from Jolene who says it's so freeing to tell those clients goodbye, which I'm sure is a feeling.
It is, because when you are going to bed stressed out, and we've all done this, or you're waking up at 3 a.m. and you just cannot, there's nothing you can do to make the client happy. No one wants that kind of stress anymore. No one needs that kind of stress. So cut it loose before you get involved where it's an 8-month process. Know your value ahead of time and know the client is just, maybe you've sold them a vacation that you have no idea what you're doing. You need to know really when to cut off that time. If somebody's putting you down or making you feel bad for what you do, other clients have told you you're good at what you do. So don't let that one person make you feel like you don't know what you're doing. And it's okay to say, we're not the right fit, you're fired.
Okay. I see there's so many comments coming in. There's so many questions. We're going to grab this one from Alana. But please, we're about halfway through, a little more than halfway through today. So if you do have more questions, drop them in. I promise I'll do my best to grab as many as I can. But here's the one from Alana. She says she's a client who did pay my fee for the first 2 trips I reserved for them, and they are now going in the second one because of COVID cancellations. She said she spent hours on the phone with her answering questions, dealing with rebookings. Now she wants to travel again and she does not see the value of my time or want to pay more fees. She wants to know, how should she fire her?
Okay. So first of all, we all worked for free, right? For like almost 2 years. And it was hard to charge a fee when the cruise lines were canceling. I mean, we didn't. But then when people started canceling because they just felt like, oh, well, I rebooked it and I don't want to go, or my kids are busy now, or whatever the excuse is, I've been telling people I would be happy to cancel it, but we do have a fee. They are like, they're getting money back generally. I mean, sometimes they're getting a deposit back, or they're getting a future travel credit. So most of those people are glad that if you want me to go ahead and process this, there will be a fee. You have to really decide the right fee again and make it. I know we all want to charge like thousands of dollars, but you need to put it in perspective. Some people can get away with charging $250, but sometimes instances, maybe it is $50, but something, because you are then taking your time to undo, and it is a terrible feeling. And if you feel like this client has just taken advantage of you, they've rebooked and rebooked and rebooked and never, then you need to just say, you know what, I thank you. This is just not working. I mean, it's not working. You've already tried to rebook them and they just nothing's going to work. It's okay to call them and say, you know what, it's just under these circumstances right now, blame it on COVID, blame it on your business model, blame it on the changes in the industry, but just be upfront and say, it's not working. We need to let this go. I can't help you any further. It's okay.
So we have one more in the chat that sort of goes off of that, which is a good transition. A guest attendee, they just want to know, if your fee is non-refundable and then you have to have this conversation with the client, do you ever get major pushback about you retaining that fee after the fact?
No, we don't get any. And if you do, you have to decide in the end if the client's going to be really angry and they're going to just make such a big scene about it. You have to then either say, okay, maybe we can come to terms. Maybe it's not $100, maybe it's $50. If that doesn't work, sometimes you just have to give it all back and just drop it. You take them out of your system, take them out of your marketing, just say, you know what, we're done. It's just not going to work. So I still think you should always try to get asked for a fee if they're asking you to do something that you have to go and spend more time on, and they're just canceling again for no reason. You need to charge them a fee, but again, it's not worth a fight either. So know when to cut your ties and just let it go the right way. The best advice I'm going to give everybody is, you never know who is going to recommend you again. So keep professional. Sometimes you want to just wring their necks and you want to scream, like you want to be unprofessional and tell them off. Keep it professional. You never know. Your reputation is way greater than getting upset or angry with someone who's not worth getting upset and angry over.
Yeah, and I know, I see, again, the chat's going crazy now about, I think the fee, that every time we sort of jump on the fee topic, it tends to spur a conversation amongst the travel advisors. So I think it's a good thing. And I think it's a good thing that sort of the business seems to be evolving for so many different people. I'm just curious, we have about a little more than 200 people on the call. Does everyone on this call charge a fee? If you want to drop it in the chat, maybe why or why not. That would be great. It just sort of helps us gauge who's in the room here. We might get back on the fee conversation a little bit, but I want to ask you something about, you mentioned earlier in the call about knowing what you book and knowing what you're good at booking and offering to clients is probably the most powerful thing you can have. And you said something the other day. You said you can't be everything to everyone, and it's important to remember that. So I'm just wondering if you could talk about that. If you can talk about knowing your niche, knowing what lane you operate in, and how best you do business. How important is that in building a successful agency?
Right. Well, I think it's really important to be a part of a consortium and know that you have a voice in the industry. You have companies that support you. You have sales reps that support you. You have someone to go to for advice and if there's a problem. So I think that's really, really important. As far as the fees, if you just come out of the blue with a fee, that is sometimes a difficult topic. So you might want to have, and you can research this, but you might want to type up your own contract. It's less is more. Just keep it simple. And just in the very beginning, I remember having a client in the very beginning. He said, my wife's been dealing, and we hear this a lot because we sometimes have older clients or whatever, not even older, but clients who have issues up front. So my client has diabetes. My client, we're not sure if we can go on this trip. That's the first question that's the first thing they're telling you. I say, well, if we do all the research, if you have to cancel down the road, we have a cancellation fee. Up front, they're like, we're going on the trip. We're not going to cancel.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, when you make them sign that, they're in your office generally, or you're communicating with them. You have it sign up right away. It's like a no topic. It's a non-issue. I had this come up where an older couple right away said, my wife's battling some health issues. And I said, well, just so you know, I am happy to do all this research, but if you were to cancel 8 months from now, we have a fee. They had already signed it. They were good with it. If you spring something on somebody, it's not going to end pretty usually. So you might as well have that uncomfortable conversation up front. And right away, you pretty much know the difficult client. So up front, if you're having those issues and you're bringing up a fee and they don't want to pay it, you don't even have to be concerned if they're going somewhere else, because you probably wouldn't have gotten their business anyway.
Yeah. I'm just curious. I mean, well, you have that conversation initially right up front. Do you collect the fee at the same time you're having the conversation, or do you collect it down the road?
You collect it up front.
Okay.
You're writing their names, their information. Usually it's with the deposit. So usually it's with the deposit, but sometimes if they want, it depends on if they're in your office and they want you to research and research and research. That's the easy time, just to ask for all their information while they're there. It's every situation's different. So there's never 100% right or wrong. And you need to read your clients.
Yeah. So I see everyone in the chat. I see there's a ton of different models people are employing with when it comes to fees. I see a ton of advisors who say they just started, a ton of advisors who say they've been doing it for a long, long time. Others say they don't. Others say they only do it in certain circumstances. So I think like we've spoken before on this series, it does seem to come down for your business, your clients, what's appropriate for you, and what you think is going to best value your time and best have your clients comfortable. Is that right?
Exactly. And every agent's different. If you're not fine charging a fee, then maybe that's not your model. But you better, when that client's running you ragged, and the person who still sticks in my mind to this day is Bob Dickinson from Carnival Cruise Lines, who said, don't let the client have you become their gerbil. And he said, the ones that are on the wheel that just keep running round and round and round, and they don't get off the wheel. He's like, if you're that travel agent on the wheel, then you better get out of the business. So if any advice is, at least take control of the situation. If you're not going to charge them a fee and that's your model, that's fine. But know when to know your value. And especially the people who have been doing this a long, long time, stop giving people the library. Stop being that resource of weeks on end of information for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just want to point out and plug a couple old sessions we did. Hopefully someone on the TMR team can find these and drop them in the chat. If you want more guidance on fees, we've done a few. It seems like maybe it might be time to do another one of these sessions specifically on fees. But we have some old ones that sort of talk about building a fee structure and things like that if you're interested. And so I'm sure someone on Team will be able to grab it. We have I know this is sort of turned into a bit of a therapy session in the chat for a lot of people, but I do want to sort of try to help people as much as we can today. So we had this question from Patrick, and this goes back to the original topic, which was firing your client. And Patrick, he says he wants your advice on handling a client who has requested services, you've booked their cruise cabins, and they keep calling you saying cruise lines have sent them more marketing discounts, they sent them more opportunities to save money, more add-ons, things like that, and they keep coming to you with these marketing materials, with these direct-to-consumer marketing. How would you deal with that? How would you have that conversation? And I guess it wouldn't even necessarily be firing the client, but I'm just wondering, I mean, any advice for him?
Yeah, so I just had that actually. I had somebody come in high-end cruise. I didn't want to lose the business.
Yeah.
Uh, so we all know this. It's the cruise deal, first of all, and it was with a from. Okay, those are keywords. From up to a 4 category upgrade. Well, they were going in May. It's already March, right? So this was a week ago. He wanted to come in. I conference called the company as we were talking, and I said, he is seeing this ad for this price. And she's like, yes, but it's capacity controlled.
Yeah.
We only are offering the 2 category upgrade because that's what's left. And the price is this, but it's also with taxes and these are the other fees. And she clarified it. So sometimes you need to understand what they're looking at, have them send it to you. No, do your research and don't be afraid to ask your rep or ask I know it's hard to sometimes get really good people on the phone, but I have no problem, especially with the high-end cruise lines, doing the conference call at the same time with the client, even if they're at home. So a lot of times I do conference calls and we go over the rates, and because they know whether they call them direct or call them through me, what they can offer them. We all have the same rates. And if you're dealing with companies that are discounting under you, something's wrong.
Yeah. Okay. And again, we're going to try to grab a few more. We have a little over 10 minutes left. Just see messages keep coming in. I'm also curious because we've had such a reaction to the fee question. Is there any brand new advisors on the call? Are there any ones maybe with less than a year in a business? I'm just wondering what sort of, because we keep hearing about the influx of travel advisors back into the industry. So I would love sort of to hear what people are saying. But yeah, any other questions, please drop them in there. But just going back to another thing you mentioned earlier, Stacey, you mentioned that there's some things you won't book or some things you won't do for a client. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that. I mean, I know there's some segments of the business that don't offer commission that maybe clients are anxious still to use. But is there anything you won't do for a client or anything you won't book? And I'm just curious why.
Yeah. So we do not book, again, companies that don't support us. One big thing is, and we had this actually right before COVID, is somebody booked a $8,000 non-refundable big resort in Bahamas. And it's non-refundable is non-refundable. And they were going to go no matter what. Yeah. But then COVID hit. Okay. So we do actually have a really good on-site person that we were able to reasonably deal with. But then we also had to deal with the travel company we were working through. We didn't book it direct. We booked it through another company. But my point is, be careful with non-refundable. Four Seasons are, there's certain chains. I mean, that's just one of many. There are lots of non-refundable hotels. And for 7 nights, at let's say $1,000 a night, that's a lot of money for you to book a non-refundable. Yeah. There's also other companies we work with. You better start reading which ones have the refundable rates versus non-refundable rates. You don't want to be put in that bind unless the client signs away and knows it's non-refundable. The other big thing is vacations by owner. Okay. You have no one to go to. So say you're a family of 4, they have 5 nights and somebody wants 2 weeks at that same property. All of a sudden, maybe they cancel on your clients. It happens over and over again. I know you hear the good. Oh, but I've done it myself. I've used that VRBO or whatever, any vacation rental. I'm not putting VRBO under the bus because really, I'm just talking about really vacation rentals though, that happen to be with direct owners. It's not just that company. Be careful because if you can't get the money back for the client, you're putting yourself really on the line with thousands of dollars. And the other thing is, just with guides. Sometimes people are like, oh, I can go online and get a guide, but again, if a group of 20 people are coming and you have just the family of 3 or 4, that guide may just be sick that day. So we use, again, companies that we trust. Yes, it may be more. Yes, we might have to say turn down the business or sell into a different category of having a little more flexible plan. But be careful. Don't just sell to sell. You need to know we've all been there where our nerves are just shot because we cannot fix something. So that's my best advice on that. And sometimes if the client wants to do it direct, sometimes you have to be willing to understand I get it, or make them sign something. That's okay too. If they want to go direct with the hotel that's non-refundable, just make sure you protect yourself.
Yeah, and I see a comment in the chat. I know we've got a little off topic. So we still have some questions on firing clients, and we do have 10 minutes left. So I think we're going to go back to that. I have another couple I want to ask, sort of the thread we were talking about, Stacey. But I think people are wanting to know about how exactly do you fire a client. And I think we covered that a little bit about having the conversation. But do you want to have any last thoughts on that? On any other thoughts about sort of making that decision yourself, about talking to a client about not doing business with him or her anymore, or any other real world examples of sort of how you've had to make those decisions in the past?
Right. Well, I like the challenging client who asks questions, the hard questions, and they're really good questions. And yes, they may be annoying, but they're just the challenging client, and know them from the bad client. The bad client does not respect your time. They can always find it cheaper. But cheaper means what? We know the schedules. Like are they coming in at midnight and leaving at 6 a.m.? Airline prices are different depending on when you leave. So cheaper doesn't mean anything to me. Are they going with a discounted airline that is absolutely horrible? They charge you for every a la carte versus a more well-known airline that has if they don't go, they have 4 other choices, where the discount airline has one choice. If they don't go till another 4 days later. I think a bad client is someone who just doesn't understand. They don't want to understand, but they keep telling you they can do it cheaper. That's not your client. You may just need to call them out and say, the unrealistic expectations. And it's okay to just call them on it. Call people out. We're always afraid we're going to hurt their feelings. We're afraid to communicate. We need to pick up the phone sometimes and tell the client, I don't want to be talked to like that. I don't want your business if you're not going to work, with me on this. You're not reasonable. I mean, the clients who are bad clients are not reasonable. They don't respect your knowledge. They really don't care about you. So sometimes you just need to cut that cord.
Do you ever pass them, or do you ever recommend them to a different travel advisor, or do you, when you end the relationship, do you just end the relationship?
I think if they're not a fit for you, generally they're just not a fit for your company. Yeah. We have another client, they picked the resort. They had been there before, but they went during a COVID time and it was rainy, and they were just so unreasonable. And we ended up giving them almost all their money back. But then the next time we had to deal with them because they had a credit, and they were just as unreasonable as the first time. So, we just told them we just couldn't work with them. Sometimes it's just their expectations, their requests are not a good fit, and maybe they are best dealing online or direct.
Yeah, you mentioned in one of our earlier conversations that you just recently had a big booking that you had to decide not to service anymore because it was causing a lot of issues. And you mentioned that they were happy with you keeping your initial fee too. Just they understood what you were saying, and it just came down to them accepting that maybe it wasn't the right fit, and you accepting it wasn't the right fit, and them being okay with you keeping your fee, right?
So here's what I find. The people who book online, that's their comfort level. Maybe that's just what they want. They want your knowledge. And this particular client was calling on Sunday evening to this agent in our office, and they wanted to call at all hours. that may be more of an internet client because they want at midnight to call the client, or they want the client to be available 24/7. The agent, I'm sorry, the agent
Oh yeah.
24/7. But it's just, we are available to our clients actually at just about any hours after they've actually made the booking. But this was just, they just wanted the knowledge and they didn't want to commit. They were fine with the fee because we explained it up front when we knew they just didn't quite know where they wanted to go. And they had people coming from all different cities. We knew it would be very time consuming to begin with. So we put the expectation out there and he was fine with it. Once his wife got involved, the kids from different cities got involved, it got a little more complicated. And they just started having a lot of the red flags were questions about how expensive the upcharges were for every little item. You need to know when to just say it's just not a good fit. And they were telling us they wanted to book it online. So it's okay not to be everything to everyone. And yes, it's very upsetting at times because you have put in all that energy and you gave them, they probably are going to book exactly the things that we told them about. So yes, it is upsetting, but at least we put in the expectation of the service fee up front.
Yeah, and just going off of that, think I know the answer to this because you mentioned how important having conversations are with clients, even clients are about to become former clients. But when you have these conversations, it's over the phone, right? It's usually over the phone. You're not shooting them a text or an email.
I think that's the most important today, because if they want to only deal by text and email, or email mainly, or websites, they don't need you. So you really need to make that, you need to start the conversation, because people, again, I said before, people buy from people they like. The computer has no relationship with you. So either people want to deal with that person who will reach out at times and have that conversation, or they don't. I feel like they come to you for a reason. They come to you because they want to talk to a human being. And so, again, every client, every situation is different, but at least the clients that we work with, I feel like sometimes they do come in the office because they want to see a person.
Yeah.
And sometimes we work with them by phone. So every situation is a little different.
Yeah, and we have a question again about the verbiage you use when you're having a tough conversation like that. Um, Let me get the name. Kim just asks if you have any verbiage you uses when you're having that tough conversation. What phrases do you use to maintain a level of professionalism without necessarily being rude?
Okay. So remember I said you need to make sure you're professional, because you don't know. Sometimes those people that did not work with you, they refer you to everyone. It just amazes me. They respect you more for coming out and being truthful. So the more truthful and honest you can be, in the end, they realize, you know what, that doesn't work for me. But I know when somebody else is asking, they're like, this person, they had every reason to tell me off, and they just kept their calm, or they just gave me the best professional advice they knew how to give. I think the clients, sometimes they know they don't want to use you, but they will give out your name because in the end, you were professional and you did give really good tips, suggestions, and they do respect that. So you don't have to yell at them or tell them, you're fired. I mean, some people do make you really angry, but in the end, it's best to hold your head up and just, again, tell them this is not working for me, and this isn't working for you. We are not the right fit. It's
Yeah,
as
so
simple as that.
yeah. I think not the right fit is probably the best way to describe it too. And I know there's a mindset about selling and gaining more clients and building your business, but from what we spoke about today, it just seems to come down to realizing someone may or may not be the right fit, or may or may not be worth your time. Realizing that you can start weeding these clients out beforehand, before you have to fire them, by using the correct questions, by using service fees, and then just accepting that you're not going to be able to get every client won't be a fit for you. You're not going to be able to be everything to everyone.
Exactly. I think the biggest takeaway from this should be know when to cut your time. Give them expectations too. If we don't find something in the next day, then again, we may not be able to help you. I think we always want to help. We feel like we need to give them something, but we just had like a last minute spring break there. They messed up this client called because they messed up their own spring break and came to us for advice. Sometimes we can't just fix their problems. And even though we are here to like find them something, we had to tell the client, this is for next week. We can't just find something for you. It's okay to tell people, I'd love your business in the future. You need to come out and tell them what you do or what you want from them. And I think, again, it boils down to just communication. You don't have to be rude. And maybe sometimes you do have to be rude and say, you're obnoxious, you're rude, and this is not working for us. You have to fit the client the best way you can, but just because somebody else is angry, you sometimes have to even maintain more of a calm.
Yeah, exactly. And I know because you've done this for so many years, you're probably fairly used to these conversations now. And I know it's still daunting for a lot of advisors to have these tough conversations. But like Stacey said, I think the main thing to take away is be professional, be even keeled, and you never know where those conversations or those relationships might go. But we're gonna have to wrap up here. I want to say thank you, Stacey, again. I know
Thank you.
we covered a lot today. We sort of bounced around a lot. And I really appreciate all your time and your expertise. And I think it was a really great session today.
I do too. Thank you for having me. Again, Stacey Acree, Brentwood Travel. Thank you.
And I want to thank everyone else who joined for the call today. I know we had a lot of participants, a lot of questions in the chat. These are always great. These are a highlight of my month. So thank you again. Hopefully, you'll see you at the New York Times show or the New York Travel show in next week. And other than that, we'll be back here in 2 weeks from today to talk about scaling a business. So hope everyone has a really great week, and I hope to see you all very soon.
Bye, everyone.